All right, I'm just going to read a quick little thing from Raymond Charles Barker, The Power of Decision. In your own life, you are the projector of your consciousness on the screen of your experience. A child may bump his head on a door and kick the door, seeming to place blame on it. An adult does not do this. He knows that it was not the door's fault. Something in his thinking caused him to bump his head on the door. The failure-prone person needs to accept the responsibilities of life, to stop blaming the world, and to seek within himself for negative causation. Why did this happen to me? Is usually unanswerable. Why did I cause this to happen? Usually leads to an understanding of the cause of the problem. Every mystic, savior, and saint has told his followers that the inside of man is the explanation of the outside of man. So I want to jump in right from that space. We're talking about freedom this month. I love, we are always, freedom is 4th of July, so it's a no-brainer that we're going to go there this month. But I really was thinking about what that means to us, and I think what I got to was the space that freedom to me is not some idea that like it's some external thing outside of me that someone else gets to tell me that I'm free. The reason ever that I'm not free is because of the own things inside of me that I am shackling myself to, that I am withholding from myself, or that I am holding to past beliefs or past ideas about myself or things that society has told me. And so I really got to thinking about how, that whole statement that we have where like freedom isn't free, that makes my blood boil. Like I really get mad when I hear people say that on like the news or wherever. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's just inside of us. It's not about someone else telling us that we're free. And I can never get behind this idea that like in order for us to be free, we have to go kill a bunch of people or beat up a bunch of people or attack them so we take their freedom away so that we can be free. Like as if there's not enough freedom in the world to just go around, so we have to take someone else's freedom. And I think that's the idea, that we think that it's outside of us. It's outside of us. Someone else has something that I want, so I'm like that little toddler that's like, that is my toy and I'm going to take it from you. And then that guy's crying because he lost his Tonka truck or whatever. And so I really thought about that a lot for myself and the ways in which I have held myself captive. And I spent a lot of my lifetime blaming everyone else on the outside of me for the way that my life looked. I spent decades blaming my parents for the things that went on in my childhood and even in my 20s and 30s, and how the way they molded me made me feel less valuable or less worthy. And it was so much easier to look out at them and say, you did this to me, and I'm not free because of you. But the more I got into my own heart and into my own spiritual work, the more I realized that wasn't true at all, because they're not even still saying those things to me. They don't call me on a daily basis and tell me who I am as a terrible person and, like all these horrible things. That's in my own brain that I run off of these like tracks that I reinsert into the disc player. Sorry for aging myself, with the kids left. The 8-track, the cassette player, and putting the cassette in, and then the tape plays all over again in my head. And that's how I stay a victim. That's how I stay in the space of like, oh, everyone did this to me. And then I can have a pity party and feel sorry for myself and blame everyone else that I'm not free. And I wanted us to look at that. I wanted us to really look at the ways in our own lives that we are using everything outside of us to say, you've taken my freedom away. Has anyone else really taken our freedom away? For most of us, I think the answer is no. I know that there are instances in the world where it does appear that people's freedoms have been taken away. Oppression is real and happens on an external way, but part of that is also our internal work, that we're perpetuating that pattern. And I think that's the thing. We come into this lifetime with, a lot of people believe in karma, and we come into this lifetime with things we have to learn and lessons we have to redo and things we have to maybe change and fix, but we're also brought into the experiences of the people around us. Our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, our friends, our siblings. And we start to learn by the way that they behave how to do things. And then before long, we've got this whole set of these new pattern behaviors that get us into a lot of trouble, because now we have belief systems We have belief systems like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough if I don't weigh a certain weight, I'm not pretty enough if my skin isn't a certain color. Everything we see from the TVs to magazines tells us who we are is not enough. And I wanted to read this little blurb from Danielle Laporte. She asked this question, she says, but do you feel free? Because freedom was and is the whole point. Countless teachers of mysticism throughout time concur that the reason for spiritual endeavoring is liberation, and only liberation. Liberation from fear, from restrictive ideologies, from illusion, from suffering. Liberation from the anxiety of not being one's true self. Free. Are you feeling it? Is everything you're doing to be well and liberated really helping you to be well and liberated? Because if liberation is a chore, then you aren't really free, are you? You can't seek approval on your way to sovereignty. Freedom is not something that you earn. I ask myself that question, do I feel free? And my answer is often no. I don't feel free. I get caught up in all these things that I see happening in society, like laws that people want to make to prohibit me moving about freely in the world, and churches wanting to tell me that who I am is not okay, or who you are is not okay. And we're just constantly tripped up by that idea that we're looking for someone else to tell us that we're okay. Danielle goes on to say, what if for a moment we stop all of this self-helping that we do and let go for just a moment of bettering ourselves with our green smoothies and our non-GMO things, and for just a moment stop and accept ourselves right where we are? How many of us could do that? How many of us could stop for 5 minutes and just accept ourselves for right where we are? Dudley's raising his hand. I'm proud of you, Dudley. That's our work. That's our work, to do that for ourselves, to be able to, in spite of anything else that's going on in the world, to be able to step up for ourselves and say, I can accept myself right where I am. That's where our freedom is, not in anyone else telling us, you're good, you're okay right where you are. Another thing I wanted to go into, so I don't know if many of you know Rob Bell. He's a former pastor of a big mega church up in Minnesota, and he started preaching that hell wasn't real and that love was for everyone, and that just didn't go over so well in his church, and eventually that kind of went by the wayside, and he eventually moved with his family to California, and he just started doing podcast sermons and preaching on his own, and he does events, and he's a writer and all this stuff. And he has this podcast that's about speaking to people and about writing and communicating. And it's both spiritual and for people who might even be doing this as a business, in corporate things. And one of the things that he was talking about this week when I was listening was about what the fire is inside of us. He said, you got to ask your question of yourself, what would you talk about? Say you're going to meet a friend for lunch. What's the thing that you would talk about no matter what? It doesn't matter that you're standing up here in front of a church or at your business or wherever, but that you would write on a napkin something that's so passionate and exciting to you that you had to get it out of you. That's what you have to find in your life. And I got excited by that because ever since I was a little kid, this right here, what I'm doing, is what I wanted to do. I wanted to stand up and scream from the rooftops the things I knew and felt about how Jesus loved everyone and God loved you and all of this stuff. I just wanted to scream it from the rooftops. In fact, I think I told this story before, but once I stopped a street corner preacher in New York City for 20 minutes when I was 7 and had this entire conversation with a guy. And my parents were literally like, we have Broadway tickets. We have to go. You cannot stay here for 25 more minutes. I just wanted to talk about it. I loved talking about God and love and what that meant to the world. And all along my childhood, I got told, you can't do that. You can't be that. You don't have anything worth saying. No one wants to hear you. And eventually people tore that dream out of my grips, or at least that's what it felt like. But that was me believing their things and putting it onto myself. And so I put that belief at the forefront, and I put this dream away. I packed it away somewhere in the back of my closet somewhere, and I said, I'll never be that. But what I found in this last year is that I was able to reclaim that dream. I was able to say, it doesn't matter what other people think that I can or can't be. And if what I say doesn't resonate with them, they're not meant to hear it anyway. And that's okay. Because there are people out there that are meant to hear whatever the messages are, whether it's something we're meant to create creatively, like beautiful rocks that we create, or music that we create, or whatever it is in our lives that is our passion, is our fire, that we send out to the world. The people who are meant to experience that will find us. They will find us, they will learn from it, and then they will be caught on fire themselves to go out and do what their passion is. So here I am standing up here, and I'm doing what my dream was. 2 weeks ago, I got to stand on a stage in New York City in a 3,400 person venue, live on camera. I mean, there was only 60 people there, don't get me wrong. But it was live streamed in Japan, in the UK, and all kinds of other countries. And I got to stand up and preach at a podium in a service in New York City. Because I decided to not believe that the freedom they had taken away from me was real. I decided no. And so that's what I want to put out to all of us today, is look at your lives. Look at the spaces in your heart where you feel like maybe you've lost your passion. Maybe you go to your job tomorrow, like maybe you're dreading tomorrow morning just getting up and going to work. Maybe you're dreading going home to your kids later. Maybe you're dreading going home to your spouse. Maybe you're dreading just life in general right now. And what I've found in that, in my own experience, is when I get to those spaces, it means I've lost sight of the things that really drive me and move my heart. So what are the things that you would write down on a napkin to get out of your soul? Because if you didn't get it out of you, you might burst. What are the things that you would want to call a best friend and just, oh my God, I've got to tell you this right now. I've got to just get it off my heart. What are those things? Whatever they are, it doesn't matter what it is. We talked the other night, we had an event, Erica was there and a few other people, and one of the women shared a story of a guy who quit his like 6-figure, big, huge job as a CEO somewhere because he wanted to blow bubbles. And we joked, what, is he still married to his wife? You know, because that seems a big leap. And sure enough, before long, the guy was touring around the country going to huge events and fairs where he figured out this rope contraption to make 6-foot wide bubbles that kids could jump through and all this stuff. And before long, he was literally making 6 figures and had this entire business on blowing bubbles. Like, if you've gotten to a point where you think your dreams don't come true, those are the kind of stories that we need to hear. And for me, some trans kid who looked like a little super lesbian kid at like 7 who was like in all boy clothes, and the parents were like, you know, what are we going to do with this? You can't be even seen in public, let alone can you stand up and preach to someone. They didn't get to determine that for me. And no one else gets to determine for you what your path is and what's right for you and where you're supposed to go and what God has in store for you. So I want to encourage all of you to take this week, get out a napkin, sit with it, make that napkin be this journal that you can write on. Let it be a space for your heart to come alive. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's bubble blowing. I don't care if you want to join the circus. I don't care if you want to be preaching. I don't care if you want to be a CEO or a pro baseball player or whatever the things are in your hearts. It doesn't matter that it may or may not be possible for you to do the thing. What matters is that you let your heart open up to the possibility that freedom is within your own grasp. Freedom is not something someone else can take away from you. Because we're always free, just like the story of this kid who hits his head or hits the door. You know, we don't walk around as adults. Actually, we do walk around sometimes as adults blaming other people for the things that happen to us. We maybe don't grow out of that childhood thing of the door hit me. You know, that door really got in my way and tripped me. You know, that's how we act with other adults. That person, you know, they took my job. And now there's no job for me and I can't have it. And so my dreams are shattered. But what if that wasn't the right job for you in the right time? What if there was something even better coming forward for you? What if we settle for things because we feel like we have to, and they're the shoulds and have-tos? Like, I've got to keep this job because it pays my bills and my insurance for me and my kids. But when I get up every morning, I feel like my heart is dead inside. Why do we do that to ourselves? Because we're afraid that our freedom is outside of our reach. So this is what I want to leave all of us with, is the yearning in your heart. Find what the little flame is that's burning, and it might be a tiny little flicker right now. It might seem like it's burnt out. It might just be the pilot light, just that little blue light. That's okay. It's something, and it's inside of you. And that's why we all come to these spaces. That's why we come to community. It's why we go to church. It's why we go to meetings. It's why we go to group settings at all, is we're looking for someone else to spark that flame inside of us. We're looking to see someone else still have that childlike fervor, that their life is exciting and worth living, and there's joy and peace and all those things. Because we look outside or we look on the news, and this world doesn't look like joy and peace and love and kindness. This world looks like destruction and disaster and hatred and anger and fear and all of these things right now. But the truth is who we really are at our core, who all of us are, is that love and peace, that peace that passes all understanding. And so our work is to find that space with inside of us. Because when we relight our own flame, we give the people around us the permission to relight their flame. Because that's what we're all looking for. We're all looking to see, like, oh, you know, should I say this in front of, what's everyone going to think? What are they going to think? What will my parents think if they see this video online? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I want to share a few more quotes with you. Someone also from our group the other night said this quote. This is actually some lyrics from an Eagles song, but I thought this really fit well. I tried to get Doris to play it, but wouldn't work this time. The lyrics say, "Well, I know it wasn't you who held me down. Heaven knows it wasn't you who set me free. So oftentimes it happens that we live our lives in chains, and we never even know that we have the key." I never had heard that lyric before, but that blew my mind. If we have the key, there's no use in blaming anyone else for locking us up in chains, because we have the key the whole time. This other quote says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." And that's the thing I'm asking of all of us, is how can we come alive inside of our very lives that we live in? It might be something little, it might be picking up a hobby, it might be any little thing that could just shift and change our hearts to feel more free. But I think a huge part of that starts with letting go of those self-judgments, letting go of how hard we are on ourselves. Because the truth is, like I said at the beginning, my parents may have said those things to me as a child, but I'm the one who has repeated it in my ears for the last 40 years. That's on us. That's not the door hitting us. That's us hitting ourselves. And that's what we have control over. We can't control what other people say to us. We have no control over that. We have no control how other people feel about us. We have no control over any of that. But the space we have control over is how we treat ourselves. How nice we are to ourselves, how kind we are to ourselves, how much self-love we have, or how much self-loathing we have, how much self-judgment we have. So I want us to assess that space in our lives. That's been my work this whole year of seminary. And I know it will be even deeper in the second year of seminary, to really dive under and get beneath those, like those dandelions in the yard. You have to dig under them and get the root out. Because if you just pull it off, it's just going to grow back up, and then, you know, your housemate just gets mad that the whole yard is covered in dandelions. So what are ways that we can honor ourselves by going in deeper, by digging out these painful spaces that we've continued to do ourselves? I mean, we can forgive the other people, but oftentimes we can't forgive ourselves. And that's our work, is how do we forgive ourselves? How do we let ourselves off the hook? Maybe for a moment, like Danielle said, put down the green smoothies and caring or worrying that we're not doing yoga enough or not doing this enough, and just for 5 minutes allow ourselves to be okay exactly how we are. To accept ourselves in just this moment. To take 5 minutes every day to do that. I challenge us all to that, to try for just 5 minutes every single day for the next week. To give yourself and honor yourself with that space of exactly where I am is okay. Who I am is okay. I am free to be who I am. And I'm free to love myself exactly as I am. I know for me that's been one of the absolutely biggest challenges of my life. But I want to be who I show myself as. I want to do the walk and talk the talk. I don't want to be a hypocrite up here, standing, saying all of these things, and this is what's great for you, and you should try doing this, and then meanwhile I go home and do all the opposite things of this. I'm sharing these experiences with you because I've been trying them myself. I've been working on these things myself to make myself more free, to make myself more self-loved, to let go of the pain I have caused myself. And so that's my challenge to all of you. The last quote I wanted to share is, Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "Man's mind stretched to a new idea never goes back to its original dimensions." Once we make these shifts, we can't go back. And that can be scary too, because sometimes we're comfortable in the space that we're in. I know I've been comfortable blaming everyone else in my life for the crap that's happened to me. That felt safe. I knew what to do with that. Taking the ownership myself, I didn't know what to do with that. But I sure as hell was going to find out. And still am going to find out. And I hope that all of you will too. And so